Hello, and welcome back to our Intro to Music Theory series. In this video, we'll be diving into the world of keys and key signatures. If you like what you learned, be sure to give us a like and subscribe for more music theory content. If you have a question that went unanswered in this video, be sure to drop it in the comments below. Now with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So we touched on key signatures very briefly in a previous video about scales. But now we get to take what we learned about those scales and apply them here. So if you ever listen to a musician talk, you may hear them say, "Oh, that song is in the key of G major." But what does that really mean? So as a quick review, in Western music, our music alphabet is made up of 12 total notes, while only 7 of them have unique letter names. We start on A, then go all the way through G and repeat back to A, again on a higher or lower pitch depending on which direction we're going. Once we've hit the next A, we'll have traveled a total of 8 notes, which is referred to as an octave. Inside that octave, there are 12 total pitches. We have A, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, and G sharp, and then repeat back to A. Some of the notes can go by 2 different names, such as A sharp and B flat. They have the same pitch, but go by different names. I use the sharp names here on the notes because they were going up. Typically, if the notes are moving in an upward motion, we use the sharp names, and if they're going in a downward motion, we use the flat names. So now that we have our musical alphabet fresh in our brains, let's talk keys. Keys refer to a group of notes that make up a musical scale. If a piece of music is in the key of C, that means that the music will mostly be using notes and chords from the C major scale. If a piece is in C minor, it will be using mostly notes and chords from the C minor scale. In case you're a little fuzzy on major and minor scales, we'll also review those real quick. Major scales are built on the patterns of steps going whole step, half, whole, and half step. So C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, and E to F is a half step. F to G is a whole step, G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, and then finally, completing our octave, B to C is a half step. We use this pattern to create a major scale regardless of the starting note. So if the starting note is an F sharp, we would still use the whole, half, whole, half step pattern in order to build it. Minor scales follow a different pattern, but the pattern is still the same for all minor scales regardless of which note that they start on. The pattern is whole step, half step, whole, half step, whole, and whole step. So if we need a minor scale starting on C, that would be a whole step from C to D, and then a half step from D to E flat, then a whole step from E flat to F, a whole step from F to G, and a half step from G to A flat, then a whole step from A flat to B flat, and finally a whole step from B flat up to C, completing the octave scale pattern. Alright, with our major and minor scales fresh on the brain, let's get into how that ties into the key signatures. So each note has its own major and minor key signature. That key signature is just there to let us know which notes we're going to be playing in this piece. So let's build a major scale in the key of D. Using our step pattern here, we have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. So in the key of D major, the F and C are both sharped because that's what the major scale pattern has told us to do. So instead of writing a sharp sign in front of every single F or C that we see on the staff, we use the key signature over here by the clef and the time signature in order to tell us that every time we play an F or C, it needs to be risen a half step to F sharp or C sharp. So when you hear the D major scale, can you hear how the scale sounds completed when we go from that C sharp to the D? In pretty much any major scale, that 7th note usually gives us a sense of incompletion and can make us really want to hear that 8th note. That's because in the key of D, D is the note that all the music is based around. We have a special name for the first note in a scale, and it's called the tonic note. It's basically the home note of the scale. In most Western music, the goal of music is to go on a journey and then return home to that tonic. This isn't true in all cases, however, but it is a good general rule of thumb when writing music. Each of the other 6 notes in the scale have their own special names as well, but we'll go deeper into that in a later video. Also important to mention is that we can cancel out a flat or sharp in a key signature on a note by placing a natural sign in front of it. These, as well as extra flats or sharps on notes in the measure, are referred to as accidentals. They apply to the same note for the rest of the measure, but no longer apply in a new measure until specifically written again. For example, let's look at this passage in the key of D major. The key signature says that all Fs are F sharps, but we want this F right here to just be an F natural, so we're going to put a natural sign in front of it. The other three Fs behind it in the measure will also be F natural. Starting in the next measure, since there's not a natural sign in front of any of these Fs, all four of these Fs will be F sharp once more. So we've learned that the key of the piece tells us which scale the music is going to be based around, and which note is the first note of that scale, or the tonic note, as we call it. And we've learned that key signatures on the staff let us know that each time we play a note that has a flat or sharp in the key signature, we need to play that note with the flat or sharp, even though it doesn't have that sign directly in front of the note on the measure, unless it's canceled out by a natural sign in front of the note, which will cancel out the flat or sharp in the key signature for the rest of that measure. And we also know, since every single note has its own key signature, that there are 12 key signatures for major keys and 12 different key signatures for minor keys. But how are we going to identify those key signatures? Each key signature has a certain amount of flats and sharps that will let you know what key you're in. In the order of sharps, the major keys are C with no sharps, G with 1 sharp, D with 2 sharps, A with 3 sharps, E with 4 sharps, B with 5 sharps, F sharp with 6 sharps, and C sharp with 7 sharps. The order of sharps that we will add starts at F sharp to C sharp, then G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. These sharps will always stay in that order in all of the keys. For example, if a key signature has 3 sharps, those sharps will always be F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. If it has 5 sharps, those 5 sharps in the key signature will always be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, and A sharp. If you see 1 sharp in the key signature, it will always be F sharp because F is the first sharp that comes in a key signature. For the flat keys, the order goes like this. We'll start with C with 0 flats, F with 1 flat, B flat has 2 flats, then E flat has 3, A flat has 4 flats, D flat has 5, G flat has 6 flats, and then the dreaded C flat with 7. Like the sharps, the order of the flats will always remain the same. Their order is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. Now I know it can be kind of weird to see an F flat written out because there's no black key and we usually associate black keys with flats or sharps. But all the flat means is that we're lowering the note a half step, so we just go down to the next white key below F, which is E, but because we want all letter notes represented in a scale, it has to be F flat and not just an E. Even though if you're playing this on the piano or on the guitar, you can just think E in your head, but for theory reasons, we gotta call it F flat. So that's the order for the major scales, but there are also key signatures for the minor scales as well. Because the same key signature can be used for a major or minor scale, we use the term relative major or relative minor to describe the scale's relations to one another. C major has 0 sharps or flats, and A minor also has 0 sharps or flats. They share the same key signature, so C major would be the relative major scale of A minor, and A minor is the relative minor scale of C major. For the minor keys, the order of sharp keys goes A minor with 0 sharps, E minor with 1 sharp, B minor with 2 sharps, F sharp minor with 3 sharps, C sharp minor with 4 sharps, G sharp minor with 5 sharps, D sharp minor with 6 sharps, and A sharp minor with 7 sharps. The order for the minor flat keys goes A minor with 0 flats, D minor with 1 flat, G minor with 2 flats, C minor with 3 flats, F minor with 4 flats, B flat minor with 5 flats, E flat minor with 6 flats, and then A flat minor with 7 flats. The order of flats and sharps that appear in the key signatures for the minor keys will be the same as they are in the major keys. So that's a lot of info to remember about the 24 major and minor keys. Some people just try to memorize all of them to recall them faster, which can work, but there's also a really nifty trick to help you figure out all of the keys and what the order of the sharps and flats are in each key. We call this handy dandy thing the circle of fifths. So starting in the key of C, which has no sharps or flats, we can either go 5 notes up or 5 notes down. Each time we go up 5 notes, we add a sharp. Each time we go down 5 notes, we add a flat. It's important that when we count 5 notes, we count in the key of the previous scale that we're using. For example, if we want to find out what scale comes after F sharp major, we could count up 5 notes in F sharp major, going from F sharp to G sharp, then A sharp, B, and finally note 5, which is C sharp. So a fifth above F sharp is C sharp, and the next scale in the pattern would be C sharp major. If we travel up, we will add a sharp, but if we go down 5 notes, we will add a flat. So starting on C, if we count up 5 notes in the C major scale to G, the key of G will add 1 sharp, which will be F sharp. Counting up 5 notes in the key of G major will take us to D, so we'll add another sharp, giving us 2, and now we'll have F sharp and C sharp. Going up once more takes us to A, which has 3 sharps, which are F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. The pattern continues until we have arrived at the dreaded C sharp major scale, which has 7 sharps and is very scary. The order of sharps will always be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp when adding them into the key signature. And if you count the distance between each of the sharps that we add onto the key signature, they are also 5 notes apart. For flats, we will start at C and then go down 5 notes in the C major scale. So after C, the next key signature will be F, which has 1 flat, and that flat will always be B flat. Music is heavily based around fifths, and we'll talk a little bit more about why that is in a future video. But not only are all the scales 5 notes apart, but so is the order of flats and sharps, which helps it make them easier to remember. Our order of flats is B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat, and F flat. This order is exactly the reverse for sharps, so sharps would be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, E sharp, and B sharp. In order to help us remember the order of flats better, I was always taught the phrase, BEAD, greatest common factor. The sharps mirror this, so you can just say the phrase backwards. On my theory test that I took in college, I would always write out beat, then C, G, F, and then write it again backwards to help me kind of try to remember. If you'll look at them, you'll notice that all of these sharps and flats are all 5 notes apart. And now you're probably starting to put it together why they call it the circle of fifths. So let's talk a little bit about how to find the relative major and minor scales. So in order to find a major scale's relative minor scale, you can simply start at the first note or the tonic of the major scale and count up 6 notes. The 6th note will be the first note or the tonic note of its relative minor scale. So in G major, we will count up 6 notes and land on E. So E minor will be the relative minor key to the G major key, and they will both have the same key signature of 1 sharp, which will be F sharp. To go from a minor key to a major key, you can count up 3 notes in the minor scale. In E minor, the 3rd note is G, letting us know that G is the relative major scale. Great job on making it this far. So to help us practice just a little bit, since this was a bit more of a confusing topic, I'm going to throw some key signatures on the screen and we will talk through the process on how to find out what key we're in. So here we have a key signature with 3 flats. So what key has 3 flats? Well, using our circle of fifths here, we can start at C, which we know has 0. Since we're trying to find the number of flats, we will count down 5 notes over to the left side of the wheel. And since there are 3 flats, we're going to count down 5 notes 3 times. So going down 5 notes in C puts us on F. Going down 5 notes in the key of F puts us at B flat, and in the key of B flat, going down 5 notes lands us on E flat. So our key signature is E flat major. If you got that, great job. And if not, don't worry, there will be more demonstrations. But now we can also look at what the relative minor of E flat major. Now counting up 6 notes in E flat major, we have E flat, F, G, A flat, B, and C. So C minor is our relative minor key because it shares the same key signature as E flat major. Let's try another one. We'll use the key signature with two sharps. So we have sharps, which means on our circle of fifths wheel, we'll have to count up to the right. So we'll count up 5 notes 2 different times. Starting on C, which is where we always start on our wheel, we'll count up 5 notes in the key of C, landing on G. Then we count up 5 notes in the key of G major and land on D. So our major key signature with 2 sharps is going to be D major. And for the relative minor, in D we'll count up 6 notes, which will land on B, making our relative minor scale B minor. Well, I know this was a very long video and you've had a ton of information thrown at you, so great job making it all the way to the end of the video. I hope that you've learned a lot today, and if I've left anything unanswered or you have a question about something else that I've said, leave it in the comments below. As always, if you like what you learned, please leave us a like and subscribe for more musical content. Congratulations on making it one step closer to making your own music, and as always, keep up that fight against awful music.